In today's video, we're going over the Arceus vstar Hisuian Goodra vstar deck. I think this is an amazing pick for the Silver Tempest format. The ability to tank hits from almost every deck out there can't go overlooked and is a very good win condition. Let's get right onto the deck profile. Starting off the deck, we are playing 2 copies of Arceus vstar as well as 4 copies of Arceus V. Usually you see 4 Arceus V, 3 Arceus vstar, but in this case we want to play 4 Arceus V to maximize our chances of starting Arceus V, because we have a really hard time if we don't start Arceus V. We only play the 2 V-stars simply because we only really want to attack with 1 Arceus V-star throughout the game, and having 2 extras is just too many dead cards in the deck, and we want as many cards that help us heal and tank our opponent's hits. Then for our other attacker, we are playing 2 copies of Hisuian Goodra vstar as well as 2 copies of Hisuian Goodra V. Again, the same fundamentals are for this one. We only want to attack with 2 Hisuian Goodra vstar throughout the game, because if our opponent knocks out an Arceus vstar and 2 Hisuian Goodra vstars, they win the game, because that is going to be all 6 prizes. So we play the 2-2 line simply because we can pretty much search this out whenever we want, as well as draw into it naturally, because we do play a lot of drawing cards, as well as our opponent really isn't going to be knocking out these turn after turn, hopefully, so we can have a few turns of finding a replacement Hisuian Goodra V to evolve into the V-star throughout the game. The reason we can tank hits is because of Hisuian Goodra V-star's attack, Rolling Iron. For 1 water, 1 metal, 1 colorless, it does 200 damage, and your opponent's Pokemon do 80 less damage to this Pokemon. Very good at tanking hits, as well as we do play other cards to tank less damage from our opponent's hit. And then the last Pokemon we play is 1 copy of Radiant Gardevoir. Radiant Gardevoir is the Radiant of choice in this deck, simply because of the ability Loving Veil. All your Pokemon take 20 less damage from attacks from your opponent's Pokemon V. That includes VMAX, V-star, and V-Union. If we put this on the board, as well as 2 Hisuian Goodra V-stars and an Arceus V-star, if our opponent goes to knock out the Radiant Gardevoir, they still have to knock out the 3 other V-stars to take their 6 prizes. So it really has no downside to us to play this, simply because if our opponent targets this down, they're just wasting a turn as well as wasting resources. For stadiums, we play 3 copies of Crystal Cave. Crystal Cave, once during your turn, that player may heal 30 damage from each of their metal and dragon Pokemon. Hisuian Goodra is a dragon Pokemon, so we get to heal 30 damage each turn, and when our opponent is effectively doing 80 less, 100 less with V's, we effectively reduce the attack by 130. So starting off our supporters section, we do play a lot of supporters, so we're going to start off with 3 copies of Melanie. Attach a basic water energy card from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon V. If you do, draw 3. We play water energy as well as Pokemon V, so there's no reason to not play Melanie, as it can get us an extra energy onto our board per turn. We're also a tanking deck that likes to disrupt our opponent's board state and hand, so we do play 3 copies of Avery. Draw 3 cards. If you drew any cards in this way, your opponent discards their bench Pokemon until they have 3. So basically you have 5 on your bench, you have to discard 2 of them. This is very good into Mew as well as into the Reggie deck, as they both need to have their bench completely filled, as well as this does hinder Palkia decks, because again, they need a full bench. A lot of decks that require a full bench get really messed up by Avery. Then for even more disruption, we play 3 copies of Marnie. Each player shuffles their hand and puts it at the bottom of the deck. The player that played this card draws 5 off the top, and the player and your opponent draws 4. Very good at disrupting decks that like to build up their hand size, mainly just Lost Box and Giratina. For the next supporter, we play 2 copies of Serena. Serena is a new supporter card out of the Silver Tempest expansion. The effect on this card is choose 1. Discard up to 3 cards from your hand. If you do, draw cards until you have 5 in your hand. You must be able to at least discard 1. And the secondary effect is switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon V with their active. So basically, instead of playing Boss's Orders, we are playing Serena, simply because we do 200 damage, which does take a knockout on stuff like Crobat V and Lumineon V. So being able to gust one of those up, take 2 prizes, and then do 80 less is good. We have no way currently at gusting up 1 prize Pokemon, but at the end of the day, The only one prize Pokemon that does a lot of damage is Radiant Charizard, and Radiant Charizard doesn't even take a one-shot on our Hisuian Goodra vstar, so we're not really worried about any of these one prize Pokemon. And then the last two supporters we play is one copy of Roxanne. You can only use this card if your opponent has 3 or fewer prize cards remaining. Each player shuffles their hand into their deck. Then you, the player that played this, draws 6 and your opponent draws 2. Let's say our opponent does get through a Arceus vstar, which is lightly, and they get through a Hisuian Goodra vstar, and they need to take one more knockout. We can hit them with that Roxanne, putting them down to 2 cards left, and that is going to be very hard for them with that 2-card hand to take a knockout on our last Hisuian Goodra vstar. And then as well as we play one copy of Professor's Research. Professor's Research's effect is discard your hand and draw 7 cards. This is very good in the early stages of the game if you can play your hand down to little to no cards and then research, or if you can Starbirth, get the pieces you're missing and also get the Professor's Research and just draw more cards. That is generally very good in the early stages in the game. During the late stages of the game, you usually build up a huge hand size, so using Professor's Research is not a good strategy. Now getting into items, we play a lot. We play a full 4 copies of Quick Ball. Discard a card from your hand, search your deck for a basic Pokemon, very simple. We also play 4 copies of Hyper Potion. The effect on Hyper Potion is heal 120 damage from one of your Pokemon that has at least 2 energies attached. If you healed any damage in this way, discard 2 energies. Now why this is very important and very good in our list is after we use Arceus vstar, we usually have 3 double turbo energies left in the deck and that are just going to be useless. But we can attach one of the double turbo energies to our Hisuian Goodra vstar, and then we can discard it using Hyper Potion to heal 120 damage, because double turbo energy, while it's attached, does count for 2 energies. That means just for that 1 energy attachment, we can heal 120, which makes Hyper Potion very good, especially in the late stages of the game when we're trying to tank as many hits as possible. We also play 3 copies of Ultra Ball. For Ultra Ball, we discard 2 cards from our hand, search your deck for a Pokemon, any Pokemon, it doesn't have to be basic or evolution, and put it into our hand. Now for the pesky Pokemon that do have effects that just one-shot us, like Star Requiem as well as Amazing Rare Yveltal, we play 2 copies of Big Parasol. As long as the Pokemon this card is attached to is in the active spot, prevent all effects of attacks from your opponent's Pokemon done to this Pokemon. Very, very good because it prevents those instant knockouts on our Hisuian Goodra, which means they have to knock us out by pure damage. We then play 2 copies of Switch. Switch your active Pokemon one of your bench. Very, very simple effect. We usually want to Starbirth for this if we don't start our Arceus vstar. And then the last 2 we play is 2 copies of Evolution Incense. Search your deck for Evolution Pokemon. Simple effect, and 1 copy of Big Charm. The Pokemon this card is attached to gets 30 more HP. Very good at tanking hits with our Arceus vstar, as well as sometimes if we know our opponent doesn't have a knockout effect, we can attach this to a Hisuian Goodra vstar, and that is 30 more damage that they have to get through. And then lastly, for energies, we play 5 copies of Water Energy, 4 copies of Metal Energy, we play 4 copies of Double Turbo Energy, and then 2 copies of the new V-Guard Energy from Silver Tempest, which really put Hisuian Goodra vstar in another tier of tankability. So Water Energy is basic. It's in the Hisuian Goodra vstar's attack, as well as we play Melanie to get that on to our Pokemon during the stages of the game, as well as Metal because Hisuian Goodra vstar also attacks for Metal. Now the Double Turbo is simply so we can attack with Arceus vstar that much sooner, as well as we can discard it with Hyper Potion to heal more damage. And V-Guard Energy, the new inclusion, is amazing. The effect on V-Guard Energy is, as long as this card is attached to a Pokemon, it provides a colorless energy. The Pokemon this card is attached to takes 30 less damage from attacks of your opponent's Pokemon V. Now this is very good because our Hisuian Goodra vstar tanks 80 damage, plus it tanks 20 more from our Radiant Gardevoir, plus 30 less from our V-Guard Energy. So in total, it can tank 130 damage from our opponent's Pokemon V. Now V-Guard energy can stack, so if you have 2 V-Guard energies on one Pokemon, it does not take 60 less, it would only take 30 less. So that is the deck list. What do you guys think of it? Do you guys think this is a great deck for the Silver Tempest format, or do you guys think this is just some under the top 10 deck that is very underrated, that's just going to fly under the radar for the whole format? Let me know what you think as well. If you want these cards or any other cards from Silver Tempest or any other expansion, you can check out the homies over at Deco Gaming. You can use my promo code YBMCards for 5% off your entire order. That 5% off coupon code works as many times as you want on different orders, of course, as well as it works on everything in the store that is single sealed, live breaks, code cards, accessories, everything. That saves you a little bit of money as well as it helps out the channel over here. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.